Well, we entered 2024 with a ton of questions about how this Big Ten conference was going to work out and look this year. And as we come up on week 6, we are starting to get a lot of those answers. A lot of questions still remain, of course. A lot of teams haven't played stiff competition, but we're getting some answers versus what we had earlier in the season. And so I'm presenting today my week 5, post week 5 power rankings. Week 4 power rankings went out last week, and I had some comments because I dropped them Friday. So I understand it was a little late in the week to drop them. So some people caught the video after and thought those were my week 5 power rankings. So I understand some of the frustration with those, but these are my week 5 power rankings. And again, drop your comments. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree. I'll be responding to the comments. And if you don't mind leaving a like, subscribing if you're new here, it really, really helps us out. We couldn't do it without all your support. So thank you so much to everybody who supports the channel and rocks with us. And yeah, and look forward to this Saturday. We're going to have a Nebraska Rutgers watch party live on the channel. So if you have that game on, you want to pop and watch along with us, watch our reactions, go ahead and do that. We're going to be doing watch parties for other Big Ten games this season, and we'll have polls for which ones you would like us to watch. So, but without further ado, let's just go ahead and dive into the power rankings here. So at 1, Ohio State. I don't think there's any question about this. Ohio State should be number 1 in everybody's power rankings in the Big Ten. I think they are, and rightfully so. They've taken care of business. They've handled business. You can nitpick some things here and there, but other than that, they've been the most complete team in the Big Ten Conference so far. So Ohio State, of course, sticks at 1 for me. Number 2, Penn State. Now, Penn State coming off of a big win at home against Illinois. Illinois being a ranked team coming in there. Penn State has better wins than Oregon. And so for that reason, I have Penn State at 2. I think Penn State is just really, really good defensively. Their pass rush is incredible. And Drew Aller has taken the next step as I expected. His mechanics looked better throughout the offseason. You can tell that his feet are calmer in the pocket, which means his mind is calmer. He's making good reads, making good decisions, and Penn State's not making a ton of mistakes. Penn State is going to be a tough team to beat, especially in their building. So Oregon comes in at number 3. Now, Oregon had a couple of question marks early in this season with the offensive line, but again, like I said in the last video, I wasn't worried about Oregon. What great teams do is they win those games and they get coached out of that, right? And what Dan Lanning has done with the offensive line and other things is, he's been able to find a combination that works really well for Oregon, but also, they're starting to play at a higher level in the defensive backfield, and of course, Dylan Gabriel is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. You give him time, and it's going to be a rough day. Even without time, he's torched teams this year. So Oregon's coming into their own, and I expect them to continue to get better. And that Ohio State-Oregon game is going to be absolutely incredible. Dropping down to number 4, I might have Rutgers higher than most, but Rutgers undefeated coming into this game. I did have them probably higher than most in my preseason rankings. Rutgers is a very physical team. Greg Schiano, has a system over there, a style that works for what Rutgers has in terms of talent. Now, of course, they're not where everybody else is on this list in terms of talent, but the way they're coached is it's very specific to what works for them. They have a offensive coordinator who really knows how to manipulate the plays based on the numbers in the box. And that's really his rhyme or reason for that is really he talks about advantage versus disadvantage, right? And if they got 7 in the box and you got 6 in the box, okay, well, we're going to hit a RPO or a run action pass, right? But they're going to set it up as if it were outside zone. Everything's going to look identical, but everything's going to roll off of that run game with Kyle Monangai, who is a load to bring down, albeit Washington put up a ton of yards against Rutgers, but that is Rutgers battled out a hard-fought physical win, and they gritted it out, and that's a Rutgers win. They're a different team between the 20s than they are in the red zone, okay? They have the second best red zone defense in the country, so it's one thing between the 20s, but when you get into that red zone against Rutgers, it gets tougher, and you got to score touchdowns to win games in this league. Now, Washington didn't help themselves at all. 3 missed field goals, and then they had that blocked field goal that was overturned due to 12 men on the field. So Washington had their opportunities. Rutgers does have some holes. Their offensive line could be better in pass blocking. Their offense in general just kind of lacks explosiveness. But Ethan Kalik-Manis, for what he is a perfect fit for what this offense wants to do. You give him time and scheme him up, he's going to be able to make throws. So yeah, Rutgers coming in here. They are coming in at number 4 on my power rankings, facing Nebraska this weekend. So that'll be a good test to see where Rutgers stands when they face a team that is also physical and also Big Ten oriented and can give them some problems. So for that reason, Rutgers comes in at number 4. Number 5, Indiana. Now I moved Indiana up a couple spots. Indiana's undefeated, of course. The one question that I have about Indiana is I want to see their physicality. Of course, Kurt Cignetti coming over, brought a lot of transfers over from James Madison in the offseason. I said Indiana had the most upside because they just had so many transfers. But they also had, the biggest potential downside. Now, turns out they have been excellent. Kurt Cignetti's got that team rolling. They can beat you in a bunch of different ways. But I just want to see them in a really, really physical test to see how they handle that. But still, hard to knock them being undefeated. So I got them at 5 currently. Michigan coming in at number 6. Michigan stayed the same where they were. Michigan beat Minnesota. Close game, but they handle business. Michigan comes in at number 6. My one question about Michigan is everybody's question, right? Are they able to win without being able to throw the ball? Now, I'm not saying they won't be able to throw the ball. I think there's ways they can scheme it up, maybe get Alex Orji moving the pocket, maybe put him in some rhythm throws. However, we know this is a team that teams are probably going to ultimately stack the box against, and you're going to have to throw them out of that. So hopefully we can start to see Orji kind of implement a little bit more, or them trying to scheme him up a little bit more in this pass game to get some open receivers, get his confidence going. But one thing I will say about this Michigan team that makes them hard to beat is they still carry that confidence of a national championship team, right? Sharon Moore coming over and being named the head coach after Harbaugh left. I thought that was the best move they could have done. Keep it in-house. Somebody that the players know, but somebody that also knows that system and that culture. And Michigan still carries the confidence, like I said, of a team that is a national championship contender, even though many believe they're not without the ability to pass the ball. But that is something that's going to win them games. You look at that USC game. USC punched them back hard, and Michigan held on and win. They did what they needed to do. They made the plays to win. That's a winning culture in Michigan. That's going to be a hard team to beat no matter what. USC coming in at number 7, had to put them one spot behind Michigan. Of course, Michigan winning the head-to-head. USC, no knock on them at all. USC is a very good team. Miller Moss is incredible. Any offense with Lincoln Riley is going to be a tough one to deal with. D'Anton Lynn has this defense turned a corner. They look a completely different on the defensive side of the ball. The defensive line is actually very, very physical. They got some dudes on that side of the ball. I only expect them to get better as the season goes along. D'Anton Lynn is going to get better next year and the year beyond. That defense is going to really, really turn a corner within the next 2 seasons. USC is going to be a really, really tough team to beat. But I am happy that USC is in the Big Ten Conference. USC fans have been incredible so far. I've had a great time interacting with them. Actually, all the Pac-12 fan bases have been incredible so far. Just all seem to be really cool and nice. But we also haven't played against any of y'all yet, so that might change. Coming in at number 9, my boys, Nebraska. They remain unchanged. Again, beating Purdue at first half 0-0, even though Nebraska had 200+ yards to Purdue's 80. Field goals, special teams is an issue with this team badly. In the Big Ten Conference, you're going to need to be able to get 3 points and kick some field goals. Nebraska is unable to do that. Nebraska can move the ball very, very well. However, I just think Nebraska needs to get better in terms of finishing drives with touchdowns, because, again, we can't rely on this kicking game, and teams are going to start to play to keep you out of the end zone and force you into kicks eventually. So Nebraska needs to figure out these special teams in a quick way. But Dylan Raiola, of course, incredible again, another great performance, albeit against Purdue. So I couldn't bump them up really. They have to stay behind Illinois because, of course, Illinois won that game. And so for that reason, Nebraska remains at number 9. Number 10, Iowa. Again, Iowa remains unchanged. Iowa's a really good team defensively, solid defensively. Again, have given up more explosive plays on the defensive side of the ball. Tim Lester is a guy that I loved coming in as the offensive coordinator there. I thought he was a great hire. So far, that offense has been better, albeit behind the run game, not really much of a passing threat. And again, so Iowa and Michigan, I'm trying to see what happens when Iowa maybe is playing from behind by a couple scores, and it forces them out of that run game. It'll be interesting to see how that transpires for Iowa, but their one loss being that couple points to Iowa State on that last second field goal. So, but Iowa has to stay here at number 10 for now. Washington unmoved, didn't move them after the Rutgers game. Again, they had opportunities to win that game. A lot of opportunities. They had that field goal at the end to potentially tie it, and then they missed 2 field goals earlier on in that game. Rutgers running that bend but don't break style of defense, and just Washington was unable to make the extra play that they needed. It seemed like every time that they did, something would happen, i.e. the blocked field goal leading to the penalty. So Washington at 11 for now, they stay the same. Michigan State also staying the same. Again, not much of a reason to move Michigan State. Aiden Childs he's turning the ball over at a high rate. However, I do see some improvements, and hopefully will continue to as the season goes along. But that's part of the risk you run. Aiden Childs is that offense. So, you go where Aiden Childs takes you. Michigan State, again, I think they're okay in the future, but this season for right now, I just think this is going to be a tough sledding for them in this season. So let's go over to 13, where I have Maryland, the Terrapins. Maryland, they played very, very well. They are a team that can be explosive in the offense. They do have the ability to stretch the field and be explosive in the offense, and they were one of the highest in terms of big-time throw rate in college football, or in the Big Ten Conference prior to last week. So, but just all around, not very complete as a team. So, they're not going to cause a lot of noise in the Big Ten. I feel like probably 13 is about where they stay the rest of the season. I mean, all things considered, I don't see many of the teams behind them moving ahead of them. So Maryland, for that reason, not too much to say about that. Maryland comes at 13 for me. At 14, Minnesota. Minnesota's going to move up a spot. Close, hard-fought game against Michigan. The onside kick call, say what you will about that. Either way, hard to know that Minnesota would have won that game, or, what would have happened. But I do have to move them up a spot after that performance. Again, there was a bit of a question mark about, when they lost to North Carolina coming into the season, and then North Carolina, gets 70 dropped on them. How good was even that North Carolina team that beat them? And then Minnesota, of course, just has not looked good over the course of this season. But a little bit of hope after that game against Michigan. They'll see if they can continue to compound off of that game and see if they can maybe string, some confidence, get some confidence back, and maybe make life tough on some teams coming up. So Minnesota slides up a spot for me, number 14. Wisconsin's going to slide at number 15. Now, Luke Fickell might already be in the hot seat. Wisconsin's one of those teams that they were what they were for such a long time, and now they're trying to completely change their system. And they're completely changing their system at a time where it's, what have you done for me lately? Again, it's 2024. It's a new college football, new Big Ten. It's this arms race. Again, who's who in this Big Ten Conference? Everybody's trying to figure that out. And Wisconsin's off to a bad start. Losing Tyler Van Dyke, of course, hurts. But overall, the team is just struggling to find that rhythm and try to find an identity of who they're going to be. I like Fickell a lot, but Fickell's going to have to hit the transfer portal hard in this offseason, because they need some weapons, and they need a quarterback back. So it's going to be one of those things where they are going to have to address that quickly if Fickell wants to be around past year 3, because questions are already arising in Madison about, is Fickell the guy for this job? But again, that's part of what happens when you completely revamp a system. You're going to take a step back before you go forward. So I'm hoping Wisconsin will give Fickell some time to be able to figure that out. But again, modern college football, it's going to more of a business, NFL style. What have you done for me lately? We're trying to make money, not lose money. So Wisconsin's at 15. Northwestern remains unchanged at 16. I'll keep Northwestern here. again, Northwestern kind of is what they are too. It's a team that, will occasionally, after having a few years of development and some experience, will have a sneaky good team here and there. But right now, in the situation they're in, they don't even have a stadium to play in. Recruiting's tough right now. They have the right guy for the job at the helm. But again, just we got to give Northwestern a couple seasons to see if they were going to be anything in this modern Big Ten, because that remains to be seen. No more Big Ten West to pick on. So Northwestern is at 16, Purdue at 17. Now Purdue coming off the loss to Nebraska, 16 penalties. Hudson Card, according to PFF, having a good day, but 18 for 25, under 200 yards, a touchdown, an interception. So Purdue is just not a good team. Ryan Walters is not a good coach. He had a pretty good recruiting class this offseason, but I'm not sold on Ryan Walters being the guy at Purdue. I don't think he should be there very much longer. So he's not one of those guys I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to. I just don't think he's a good coach. And then speaking of moving to UCLA, UCLA, Deshaun Foster, we know the whole story there. We know the whole thing about UCLA. They are just a team struggling to find themselves. Their team is struggling to find anything remotely resembling consistency. And while I do think they are improving in areas as the season goes along, I just haven't seen enough to be able to put them over any of these other teams yet. I think 17 and 18, I think they're 17A, 17B, 18A, 18B, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, outside of that, I find it hard to really kind of put one of Purdue ahead of UCLA or UCLA ahead of Purdue. I think you can flip and flop those as you will. But that'll do it here from my power rankings. So again, if you disagree, if you agree, drop your comments down below. Let me know where you think I was right, where you think I was wrong. I'll be responding to those. Drop a like if you've made it this far in the video, and subscribe. And also, like I said, stay tuned for the watch party, Rutgers, Nebraska, this weekend. We will be there. We will have guests for you as well. So y'all come on and watch the game with us. It'll be a really good time, and look forward to seeing y'all there. And again, as the season goes along, we will have polls. We'll be dropping them in there as to what games y'all want us to watch the next week, and we'll do that. So, yep. But with that being said, thank you everybody again for tuning in to the Big Ten Show, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.